Greetings, Commanders, and glory to mankind. It is almost Thor's Day, the day when Titan Thor becomes vulnerable, and a whole fleet of carriers with newly acquired Titan Mark IIs, further equipped with shard cannons that have been made resistant to the anti-Guardian zone for engineering at Ramta, has descended and has surrounded Titan Thor, awaiting the signal to strike come tomorrow. In this video, we'll explain how it is now possible to solo the Titan. That is, to do 100% damage to a thermal core all by yourself. So what you're going to need is a Titan Mark II, which is now available only for credits, which is nice. And the build that we're going to use is going to rely on the old Guardian shard cannons, not the modified version that's available for Mboni, as that cannot be engineered for anti-Guardian zone resistance and consequently cannot be used in Titan space, but the old shards can be engineered with such resistance. And as it turns out, they make for amazing bombing weapons. The build itself is the version 3.1A of the TitanBomber build that we put out earlier. And it lives up to a name. It's really slight modification to the version 3.0, which was leveraging anti-Xeno missile racks, or to be specific, Cirrus missile racks instead of Guardian shards. This one instead uses Guardian shards with the anti-Guardian zone resistant experimental that is available at Ramta. It has 5 of these, and consequently it needs to rely on a class 3 experimental weapon stabilizer to allow to fit a 5th. The 6th one is for a nanite torpedo pylon. The rest of the ship is consistent with a TitanBomber 3.0, which is a very unconventional build, as it is a ship that runs very cold with just 15.3% under thrust. And the reason it runs so cold is because it needs to account for the heat generated by shields when charging. Unfortunately, ETSI doesn't show this, and I get a lot of questions saying, why do you say that shields like these shields only generate so much heat? Because look at the shields that you have here, they're only like the power draw 1.19 megawatt. This is kind of negligible heat. If you turn it off, turn it on, it's like no difference. Well, that's the fact that ETSI doesn't show what the heat generated by shields as a charge is. So you're only going to see what it actually is once you're flying the ship. And this 15.3% on the thrust will go up to 20 on the ship with these modules turned on, which by the way is actually even lower. It's 14.2 once you turn off the modules that shut off when the hardpoints shut off. Which is another interesting aspect of this, so by the way, which is power priorities matter. So power priorities matter because these 3 modules are on priorities 4, 4, and 5. When you deploy your hardpoints, they will turn off. When you need to use your AFMU for repairs or frame shift drive to get out of there, you need to store your hardpoints, and these will automatically turn on. So you don't really need to mess with power priorities at all. You just need to store and retract hardpoints as you otherwise normally would. Also note, this ship is a ship that runs with clean drives. This is also necessary to stay at the necessary heat level on the thrust. Dirty drives will make you go faster, but will make you get too hot in a shielded build and consequently get you in trouble. Note, you can run dirty drives if you want by dropping the shield. I personally wouldn't. So also, as I will demonstrate in a minute, it's not necessary. This ship can get around and can zero the thermal core with clean drives. So again, if you want to put dirty drives and drop the shield, personal preference, go for it. I personally do not recommend it. The rest of the ship, again, is pretty straightforward, and I don't think we need to get through it in details. The only thing that might be worth calling out is this very unconventional shield, which is a 6D shield generator, which is engineered for enhanced low power and low draw. People are saying, well, why do you want to save weight on the shield and use a D-rated? Well, I'm not doing this because I want to save weight. I'm doing this because I need to save power grid. Like, shields are very power grid hungry, and my power budget is already way overcapped. So I got to get out of my way to sort of like have these shield use as little power grid as possible. And this is as efficient as it gets for a shield in terms of power grid use. The low draw also means that I can use this shield while flying 1-4-1 in terms of pips. The shield will charge with a single pips in system, which is a humongous quality of life improvement over having to mess with pips to charge your shields, which then drain your system capacitor, which means you cannot fire heat sinks, which means you get into further trouble. So the fact that this ship flies 1-4-1 in terms of pips configuration, so like this, is great. So this is the Titan Mark II bomber build. But how do you actually go about bombing? What are some tips and tricks with regards to actually how you bomb the Titan? And this is the list that we put together, kind of recommendations, and I'm kind of in front of them, so I'm kind of like unclear myself. So like, if I can't manage, so you can see it, there you go. So there's a few tips and tricks, and the graphic here is courtesy of Commander Sam Dessous, who has spent quite a bit of time with this build, by the way, and optimizing this for. So the first tip is, it's not a matter of moving faster or going faster. It's a matter of covering less ground. So you want to be on the inside. You want the circumference of the circle, which you're turning around over, to be as small as possible so that you cover as little ground as possible. You can lock thermal vents up to 3 kilometers in range, and that is the distance at which you should roughly be when you're turning around going from vent to vent. You should be 3 kilometers on the or close to 3 kilometers on the inside of a Titan, as you can see from the green arrows on this graphic, as opposed to the red ones, which are 50% slower, other things being equal. So a very significant difference. The second thing to note is, don't straight line. Instead, trichord, as in thrust and boost contemporarily or at the same time, forward, up, and right. The trichord boosting is the fastest acceleration that you're going to get in a ship in Elite Dangerous. So if you're trying to go in a circle, which means constantly changing your direction, you want to be accelerating as fast as you can to do that, to go around that circle as fast as possible. And the fastest way you're going to accelerate around that circle is with a trichord boost. Forward, up, and right if you're going clockwise. So don't straight line, and instead boost in that combination of sideways, up, and forward. Another tip, number 3, is to shoot your last torpedo late. You might be tempted as you approach the vent to just lock it and fire away. The problem with doing that is that the time that the core takes to extract depends on the time when the last vent was hit. So if you hit your vent too early, you're not going to have time to get to the thermal core by the time the core is extracted, and consequently you will have less time on target on the core. By delaying that last shot until you're almost crossed down and going towards the core side already, you can delay that, and you can make sure that when the core starts extracting, you're pretty much sitting on top of it or just about getting there. The fourth tip is, don't wait for vents to lock. You need to stare at the vent and look at it to begin the locking process. Once that locking process has begun, torpedoes are turreted. You don't need to keep staring at those turrets. Start the locking process and look away and think about the next vent. Once you hear the beep of a lock being acquired, fire the torpedoes blind without looking at the old vent. You should be looking at your next vent at that point in time. That will allow you to shoot and move much faster than if you were just sitting and staring for the time it takes to get a lock on an individual vent. And finally, initial positioning matters when the vents open. Ideally, you want to be in between two vents that then you can hit right away just by turning the ship on a dime when you start. That's going to save you another very significant amount of time, because it's essentially like having one less vent to hit. So that's all good and fine. That's all some cool theory, but how does it work in practice? Well, here is our demo of how it works in practice. Notice my 45-degree angle. And notice there's a glaive on my tail here too, by the way. Note how I'm staying high and up on the inside of the Titan, flying above the interior ridges. Alright, now as I'm about to approach the last vent, notice how I turn and go in between and only fire when I'm just about to cross down here. And then boost, boost, boost on the way to the core. By the time the core extracts, I am right here in Titan, ready to go. Thing to note to zero the core is I am using premium shards. The good thing about premium ammo for shards, unlike missiles, is that you do get your premium ammo back if you self-destruct or otherwise are destroyed. So you have a quick and relatively simple and cheap way to get your premium ammunition back. Alright, so we zeroed that core, and note that for this cycle we are getting a 2 million credit bond at the maximum damage resistance. That will turn into, well, we'll see tomorrow, but my guesstimate would be somewhere in the 30 million range once the Titan becomes vulnerable. So something in the range of 15 times what it currently is. So pretty good chunk of change for an individual cycle bombing run. All right, and with that, we have completed our little overview of how to go about soloing a Titan. How are you faring? Did you build a Titan Mark II? Do you have the anti-guardian field shards? By the way, if you need a guide on how to collect the materials and do the anti-guardian field engineering, I'm going to link that guide in the comments below, as they can be kind of nasty to acquire and take a while, so it's good to have that on hand for reference. Either way, we'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for supporting my channel, and as always, glory to Mechan. Commander Mechan over and out.